The ICG is a community of independent market researchers who collaborate, share knowledge and experience to deliver value to fellow members and to clients. If you're an independent researcher and want to connect with over 400 like-minded people, gain access to our knowledge base, get inspiration, support and advice from other members, then why don't you join us? Either visit our website, theicg.co.uk/join, or email us at membership@theicg.co.uk. If you're a client company and want to connect with the largest resource of expert independent researchers in the world, with proven expertise across all markets, categories and techniques, then why don't you contact us? Either visit our website, theicg.co.uk/connect, or email us, connect@theicg.co.uk. If you're a supplier and want to promote yourself to over 400 buyers of research services, then why don't you contact us? Either visit our website, theicg.co.uk/advertise, or email us at admin@theicg.co.uk. The ICG, Expert Independent Researchers. This webinar is kindly sponsored by Appletree Marketing, who specialise in helping independent consultants to grow their businesses by showing them how to stop wasting money on their marketing. They have over 20 years of experience working with small businesses, including ICG members. Known for getting things done for their clients, Appletree carry out weekly and monthly marketing activities for their clients. This means their clients don't have to worry about their marketing. Every month, Appletree write and send out their free email newsletter, Scribbles. It's full of marketing advice and practical tips, specifically written for independent consultants who need help with promoting their businesses. Go to appletreeuk.com to sign up to the free email newsletter. Chantal Cornelius from Appletree presented a webinar on Thursday the 9th of June. Just follow the link to see the recording.
I'd like to thank Appletree for sponsoring this webinar again, and thank you ICG and Arthur for the opportunity. I'm presenting from the UK, as Arthur told you, so hopefully all will be well. If not, Arthur has my script and he'll present the paper in his best Indian accent, hopefully. I'd like to apologize on behalf of Sanjeev, the acting CEO of matrimony.com. He's too busy matchmaking, and you know how much work that is, to make it to the presentation. Now, a little background on my study of semiotics. I've used semiotics since the beginning of my career, and last year I had the great opportunity to shadow one of my favorite professors of semiotics, Professor Denesi. It was a dream come true for me, as I've been reading his books and papers for 20 years. I went to him to discuss the possibility to do a PhD in semiotics. He spoke to me at length and said he did not think I needed to do a PhD, as I apply it effectively already. He then invited me to submit a paper on semiotics at the SSA conference last year. And so my paper was selected and I presented it. So thank you, Professor, for your many, many kind words and deeds. This presentation, The Big Fat Indian Virtual Marriage Market, yes, it's a mouthful, New Codes for Marriages, is an applied semiotic presentation, not an academic study of semiotics. I have seamlessly applied semiotics through the presentation. My presentation uses cultural semiotics as per Cassirer. It is mainly a study of the definitions of marriage in sign systems in the sense of Herder or Taylor in Indian marriages, with a focus on how marriages are arranged, especially on the net. I've used various semiotic tools to explain meaning wherever needed in the research. So the market is vast, the subject is very semiotically rich, and I have 40 minutes or so. I'll try and complete it quicker. So I will present a few main points of the research. The research method was qualitative. I conducted interviews with matchmakers, marriage website developers, users, so that is parents and prospective brides and grooms, as well as those who had gotten married via websites. I also conducted ethnographic research by registering on 2 such websites, and I'm still getting emails from various suitors. I also interviewed actual matchmakers who started their matchmaking practice as just people getting to know people, and then they've moved on to websites. Finally, I did a semiotic analysis of websites because everybody seems to be using websites. and also to understand which ones are working, which ones aren't, and what are the new codes for actual online communication. I have used Prezi, as I find that this particular canvas on Prezi works really well to present the metaphor of the change in culture I'm talking about in my paper. I also like the fact that this hourglass can be turned around and things are turned around on their head, which is also happening in our culture in India today. The first part of the paper sets out the context, gives you an idea on why marriage is important in India, how it is defined, and some numbers about marriages and arranging marriages. The second part, as we go through the funnel of time, displays the change in how marriages are being arranged now and online. So it is a big market. There are 1.27 billion Indians living in India today. 850 million are below the age of 35. 244 million live in urban areas. 243 million use the internet. That doesn't mean that they are all in urban areas, but it means that they have access to and use the internet. 110 million use mobile internet. That is the fastest growing area, smartphones. And the literacy rate in India is 74% for ages 7 and above. Indians have to get married. It is the rite of passage through life. Well, that was the norm. Even today, there are 50,000 marriages which are said to take place every month. This is the reported figure. Marriages taking place in villages, temples are not registered, so not reported here. And the divorce rate is only 1.3%, albeit higher in urban areas and increasing. This is not counting couples who are not divorced or are separated, or where the man has taken another wife. So why do Indians have to get married, you ask? I'd like to go back to Hindu Vedic texts, which form the basis of how Hindus live. There are 4 basic life stages talked about in ancient Indian texts. They're called Chaturashram, so 4 ashrams. It is one facet of the dharma concept of Hinduism, which is not, as we say, a religion, but it is a way of life, which is integrated with purusarth, which means what it is to be human, what is required of a human. To be human is to have dharma, which is piety, morality, duties. To have arth, which means meaning. To have health, wealth, means. To have kam, which is love, relationships, and emotions. And finally, moksha, which is liberation, freedom, and self-realization. These are abstract social concepts which translate to a specific lifestyle focus for each stage in life. Each stage is called Chaturashram, called ashram. So therefore Chaturashram, which is 4. Chatur means 4. The connotations of each stage are, so if you start from the bottom, as a student, which you start from 0 age to 24, you're in Brahmacharya ashram, which is about being a student. The focus is on learning and education. This stage includes the practice of celibacy. Grihasth ashram is about marriage, partnership in today's terms, and focuses on settling down, enjoying physical, emotional, sexual, occupational, social, and material attachments. It connotes maintaining a household, raising a family, educating one's children. This is from 24 to 48. At 48, you're set to enter Vanaprastha ashram. The focus is on handing over responsibilities to the next generation. I call it succession planning. This is where you take on an advisory role. It is a transition phase to eventual withdrawal from life, which is the sannyasa ashram, which is at 72. A sannyasa ashram is about renunciation of material desires and prejudices. While these are suggested, all these ashrams, in ancient tradition, everyone was not required to enter grihasth, that is, get married, or vanaprastha. And then they could go on to sannyas, stayed from being students. So that is, they could renounce worldly life after education. Let's focus on grihasth, which is what we are talking about in terms of marriage. The etymology of this ancient word is really interesting because griha means home or house or family, and greha means planet. Ast means to be devoted to or occupied with being in. So the word grihast literally means to set up a home, to settle down. And that is why marriages are very important in India. But it is also a cultural thing where it's not about just living together. There has to be a formality in the marriage. In the ancient tradition, recent traditions of India, Grihast ashram is decoded semiotically as marriage. Some common words for marriage are shadi, which is actually an Urdu marriage. It comes from a Persian word which means happiness. The Mughals ruled India before the British, and the court language was Persian, from which developed Urdu, a mix of Persian and Hindi. Semiotically, this work is a sign process, as per Posner and Reineck, 1977, of the emotions which are generally associated with weddings and a good party. Vivah is a Hindi word derived from Sanskrit and denotes wedlock, and so is Vyah. Gatbandhan is a Hindi word which means to tie the knot. This word is a very evocative sign of the process of marriage. In India, the bride and groom are literally tied together during the marriage ceremony. This tying of the literal knot references the figurative knot, which then ties together a married couple and even families. Lagan is another Hindi word which means devotion and perseverance. Again, the word is a sign process of the attitudes and emotions which exemplify a successful marriage. It is interesting to see that all these commonly used words for marriage describe being married as a stage, as well as the processes and the emotional connotations about being married. Arranged marriages are a very Indian tradition, though it is not only India where they take place. The Japanese have them, Middle Eastern countries have them, and even the aristocratic rich British have them. In India, it is still very much alive. In the past, the main actors in arranging a marriage were not the girl and the boy. The decision makers were parents and grandparents, and the influencers were pundits, barbers, people who went around homes cutting hair, massaging adults and babies, performing religious ceremonies, who knew the ins and outs of families, a bit like Barber of Seville, I would say, as well as relatives and family friends. In the past, the old kinship networks helped identify the match or the right marriage partners. However, with modern life and with nuclear families, with people moving out of their homelands, the kinship networks dissolved, and more Indians moved out of their own cultural sphere. Matrimonial columns in newspapers emerged as the go-to place for arranging marriages, especially so for urban and educated Indians. As you will see, they are quite specific about what they are looking for. Some memes have emerged from these matrimonial columns which are highly stereotypical. Most are looking for slim, fair, tall girls, for guys who are handsome and fair from respectable families. These ads in themselves were very cliched. Therefore, the great adoption rate of website, where one can have more detail and be more specific, is not surprising. It's an extension, it's a move into technology, but also it is something of a need, because these were very small ads, and then the process of questioning and all had to be more detailed, and it involved more time and effort, and sometimes emotion. So let's go to why horoscopes are important. Through the ages, and even today, among traditional and even modern families, the horoscope is one of the factors which can make or break a prospective match. All Indians who believe in it have a horoscope made for a child when he or she is born. Most even choose a name according to the horoscope. So the horoscope will say, name a child starting the letter H, and they would name the child with an H. In marriage, there are 36 variables about character, health, etc. that a couple can be a match on. The couple need to be matched on 12 variables to be suggested for marriage. Don't you think this is similar to dating websites that we are using currently? For Indians, astrology is a scientific and mathematical process, not just New Age mumbo-jumbo. As I semiotically analyzed this idea, I realized that horoscopes are like algorithms which run all software programs today. Thus, you see, Indians are accustomed to algorithms and to handing over the finding of a match to a mathematical process or someone else. While the West is adopting algorithms with dating websites, maybe the someone else factor is still strange to them, right? Handing over matchmaking to somebody else, but they have adopted the algorithms. Coming to a later stage where I was telling you why this is quite a fraught, process, arranging marriages. At a later stage of this process of arranging marriages was, and still is for some, the introduction of the boy and the girl who probably thus far had not even heard of each other, which used to happen in the past. This visual here is a meme which is very cheesy but evocative for young Indian girls. This is a process within arranging marriages which has become ritualized. So in this process, the boy and his girl visit the girl, and boy and his family visit the girl's family, where the girl is then on show. Traditionally, she brings in tea and samosas on a tray, and the family says she has made the samosas and tea herself to show she knows how to cook. She's looked up and down and is supposed to take surreptitious glances at the boy. The boy and the girl may or may not get the chance to speak privately. In the past, they probably didn't. Nowadays, it's very different, depending on how modern the family is. And then the boy's family would generally call back with approval or rejection. It is a fraught process, especially for the girls and their families. This picture is taken from a very funny video, which is also a meme of this process. And if anybody wants, I've got my email at the end of this presentation, and I can forward it to you if you email me. However, times are changing, as I have tried to show you in this hourglass metaphor, albeit slowly. Surprisingly, even in modern India, urban India, 95% of young men and women still say they want an arranged marriage. And this is not because of anything else other than they feel that the parents have their best interest in heart. They perhaps feel that they're not actually meeting the right kind of people. So yes, they would prefer an arranged marriage where there is commitment from everyone. Only 5% say they want a love marriage. Surprising, huh? When Bollywood is constantly selling out on stories of love. The claim is that 25% end up with semi-arranged marriages via a website. And that's what's happening. While they say they want arranged marriages, they actually mean semi-arranged marriages. However, there is one big change in this new world. Control and decision-making has moved to the boy and the girl, and the parents to an extent. The biggest change has been the girl in particular has a choice of partner now. There are more men than women in India now, and girls are better educated and in good jobs. They want to have a say in the decision. Boys always have had more of an input on the decision. Interestingly, in my interview with a matchmaker who claimed to have matched over 1,600 couples in 15 years, her one big comment was, girls are more picky now. So this is the state of the nation about why Indians marry and how they have moved from arranged to semi-arranged marriages. Let's now just focus on the websites. There are 1,500 matrimonial websites in India catering to different languages, castes, communities like Tamils or Tamil Brahmins, even very specific, and a new thing, which is the defense community or the civil services community, who are more cosmopolitan, so where caste doesn't matter, where communities don't matter, but maybe language matters. Today, the business of matrimonial websites is probably worth a lot more than the 180 billion US dollars it was in 2006. So there are many websites. The most popular ones, which I looked into, which are the most comprehensive ones, and they cater to almost all castes and languages, are these four. If you look at them, all have very cleverly designed logos which present a mix of tradition and modernity. The names are very semiotically significant. Shadi and Jivan Sati. Jivan Sati means life partner, have gone for traditional words which represent marriage very clearly. If you look at the one on the right, Bharat matrimony, Bharat is an ancient word for India, and matrimony, of course, is an old word for marriage. Thus, Bharat matrimony is presenting itself as a real marriage website. These are not dating websites and are emphasizing it with these traditional words in Hindi and English. They're very specific about it there, and they want to emphasize this all the time, that they are not websites. And if you're serious about getting married, then you come to these websites. Let's look at specifics here. So the first one I'm looking at is shadi.com. Very popular website, and it's almost a generic. When people talk about websites, they always say, oh, let's go on to shadi.com, but maybe they're looking at Bharat matrimony or something else. Their old logo, so they've changed their logo recently, but this is their old logo. Their old logo had a more traditional color and feel to it, red and green. The logo has a bindi. Bindi signifies the symbol of marriage for Hindu women. A bindi is the little dot on top of the A of the shadi. The girl with mendi, so mendi, if you see the woman with her hands, she's got henna on her hands, which is mendi, is a visual reference to the process of weddings. Mendi is applied to a girl's hand and feet sometimes in a ceremony one day before the wedding. There is generally a lot of dancing and singing during the mendi ceremony. The girl is surrounded by her female relatives and friends. Thus, the mendi on her hands is very referential as a semiotic code. All the websites use the same codes. If you look on the right, some of the codes for arranging marriages, but they are the same, but there are new interpretants, so it's the girl and the boy. Some of the questions which were asked when marriages were arranged in traditional ways and are still asked in the same way in the websites, they are referential as per Jacobson model of communication. They ask about education, geography, where the girl and the boy is from, where they will live, what is their religion, belief system, which is still non-negotiable for a lot of people. What is their caste? Caste is no bar, is only 3 to 4% of the people, so there's not much change there. They ask about the language spoken at home, which is important to 90% of website users. They ask about family details. Is it a joint family? Does the boy live with the parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousin, or is it a nuclear family? What is the marital status of the siblings? Is the user vegetarian or a meat eater? Does the boy drink alcohol or smoke? Other things which were not checked earlier but which were inferred before but are now checked out more explicitly and asked on the websites are, what is the body type? Slim, heavy, average? But everyone is not thin, of course. Who is not thin, of course, is average these days. Still others were not really asked by parents in the past, things like hobbies, what people like, what the girls like, but are now asked in the website. Does the girl drink? What do the boy and the girl think about the other drinking alcohol or eating meat or smoking? Profiles which get most responses are those with a good write-up, which is poetic and phatic, as per Jacobson, and photographs which are real. Horoscopes are an option for most of the sites. People get more choice if they have their horoscope on the website. I would say horoscope is a metalingual code. Jacobson again. Another new code which came up, which is there on the shadi.com website, is the country. Where would they like to settle in? Very interesting with more and more Indians moving abroad. Let's look at another website, which is Simply Marry. It is a newer, it's a fastest growing, so they claim, website. And it is a site by the Times of India group. I used to work there, by the way. They have still one of the most successful newspaper matrimonial columns. So let's look at this page semiotically. So Times of India, the fact that it is from Times of India, which everybody knows and it's told to everybody, is very important because it's a 175-year-old newspaper. It has a very respected matrimonial column and it engenders trust. The couple, if you look at them, are, the image is they're smiling, it's a married couple, not overly glamorous or they're not too fair. It signifies that you can find everyone a partner. It's for everybody. If you read in the middle, we have Jab Baatein Ho Free. It's very English. It's not very highbrow, the language. This is how the young speak. So Jab Baatein, when it means when you talk, Ho Free, it's free. So they give a lot about it's free, it's easy, there's no immediate monetary or online commitment. That's what they're trying to show. These are things that have come up. People find it difficult or they don't want to pay up. It allows free chat. This is one of the first websites which did that, which allows people to chat first. And I'd like to refer to a paper I heard at the conference last year in Pittsburgh by Michael Raposa about how text is a good way to get to know each other. And Simply Marry have been very clever in roping people in and keeping them engaged with the promise of free chat and talking about free constantly and easy, and how it looks like fun. You know, they're smiling, they're actually grinning, not just smiling. So it's an easy process and they're promoting this idea of it's simple. Let's look at the logos specifically semiotically. All are Indian, all are modern, and within the internet branding norms of .com or the fonts are very internet friendly. I haven't gone into details of that, but I'll just go through some of the logos. So this is the Shadi.com new logo. They've changed it recently to reflect what they found young couples are looking for. What they found is they're looking for compatibility, not just in the sense of family and jobs and education, but also in terms of love, which is different. They want a semi-arranged marriage. They want a partner of choice. So they've got the red heart, which, you know, the sign is a red heart. It signifies love, semi-arranged marriages, partner of choice. The color is really interesting as well because it's a pinkish red color. And the sign there, modern, it signifies modern, it's gentle, it's about marriage. On the right, you'd see the .com sign. It's a vertical script. It signifies it's up to date, it's technologically with it. Let's look at the Simply Marry. I think I mentioned this before. Again, it's simple. If you see the font, it's a very simple font. It says simply, which denotes simplicity and ease of use. It also connotes marriage because they've said marriage. You can trust us. It's Simply Marry. It's not about dating. It's not about having affairs or anything. It's just simply getting married. The color sign red is interestingly the old, darker Indian matrimonial color. So they've kept into the tradition of marriage. They've not made it modern, or it's not about living together. The orange sign, the orange color sign, is sacred to Hindus, and it connotes it's rooted in Indian tradition, in the Indian tradition of marriage. Coming to Bharat matrimony, the sign colors here, green and orange, they refer to the Indian flag. For Indians, they're very rooted in Indian tradition. Traditionally, green means prosperity and orange means sanctity. And that is what people want in marriage. They want the marriage to be sanctified. They want the marriage to be prosperous as well. So the union to be prosperous. The word Bharat denotes, it's an ancient Indian word for India. It connotes rooted in Indian tradition as well. But they've also included happy. So it's not saying that it's going to be traditional, but, you know, not just a marriage, but it's about happy, successful marriages. And it's also talking about choice, that we're giving you the choice to have a happy marriage. It's well researched. It's not random, that you're not just being told to get married. It's not an arranged marriage in that sense. So it's about happy marriages. Websites in India, as people are used to finding matches scientifically, work on algorithms. Algorithms, as we know, work for arranged marriages, if people are being honest. As I mentioned earlier, Indians are used to horoscopes, which are kind of algorithms. Of course, the industry is not without its problems. The websites provide chat, email, and then finally phone numbers. The distance, which is physical, makes for problems, and otherwise for matches in newspapers and websites. It can be immense. The problems can be really difficult. And now there are, because of fraud, there have been cases where some politicians have taken up this. The websites claim that they check as much as they can and have security marks on people. When I was doing my own searches, as I was doing ethnography, so there were some people who had security marks, so that meant that they had been checked. And they have various ways of doing that. I won't talk about right now, but the websites have ways of doing that online. However, they even provide services to have the family checked out by a private investigator. So if the conversation has gone far enough, then you could even get a private investigator. So it is modern technology combined with traditional science as well as traditional practices. So the new codes, let's talk about what the websites have given. They've given more choice to the boy and the girl. However, the other more important thing is the girls are more empowered now. They are able to have a choice. It is about compatibility. There is less effort because you can do this online. Couples can get to know each other before they meet each other. However, as I said, the new codes, there is fraud, which is on the rise. There are people like Maneka Gandhi, who was Sanjay Gandhi, one of Indira Gandhi's son's wives, who has taken up the drive to combat internet fraud. It is less of a family connection because people don't know each other that well. So then there is a higher divorce rate for this. So there are problems, but modern India is going semi-arranged, using technology to search a wider network, but also using the same technology to arrange marriages in a traditional way with horoscopes, asking the family questions, etc., but online. This study was semiotically one of the richest I have conducted, and a lot of the decoding of messages was done using semiotics. There is a lot more, but this is all we have time for today. I have another great video which I have here, which shows how modern semi-arranged marriages work after the websites arrange these marriages. If you have the time, do look at the video. Arthur will be attaching it to the upload, which will be sent to you later. I won't go through it. It's quite long. It's about 12 minutes. So I will now hand over to Arthur for any questions. You have my email there and my telephone number and my Skype. So if you have any questions or need to ask me anything later on, do give me a call. And thank you, Arthur. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Let me just get my screen back in order. So hopefully you can now see my screen. This is all about the relevant questions that people might have. The one thing that struck me was the way in which the traditional codes have been translated into the modern world. And you were speaking about colours and words and so on. In your research, did that move on any further? Did you find more examples of semiotic codes in other aspects?
Yes, there were loads of things which were, when we went into the details of the website. Then I also looked at how people talk on websites, that's where I explained, the poetic and the phatic and what gets more responses, etc. But yeah, I couldn't go into details of that at the moment. But what I explored is what kind of profiles that people put up, and what are the things which have more of a response. What do you say when there's more of a response? what is the language that people use, and what do the other the girl and the boy, what they interpret from the language as well, because there is decoding of that profile as well. So if somebody says that I want my one of the girls I talked about, she said there was a profile of a guy who was like, I want the girl to we will live with my parents, and I want the girl to respect my parents. And the girl, very independent, she said, I will respect somebody if they earn my respect. I'm not going to say, obviously he's very traditional, so I'm not going to go into that kind of family where they demand respect even if they're not. So I've done a lot more research on that as well, but that's it's going really deep.
And in terms of the sort of more modern codes that you've established, you mentioned Hinglish as one of the more modern ways that that sort of come along with the traditional aspect of this. Are there any other more modern codes that are coming out? Because you mentioned some of the older codes, the Indian flag colours and the traditional colours for marriage and for sanctity and things like that. Are there any more modern codes that you've identified?
From technology, and because of what I talked about, the fraud that's going on. So they're doing a lot more, the security marks are becoming very important on profiles, for instance.
This is so that you prove that you are who you say you are? Is that what it is?
So that you are genuine. So I can talk about this now, that a lot of these websites, they check. So when somebody registers, they have various levels of how you would register. And they do one basic check of, if this person is present on other things as well, and they'll do a check and link you to, now, as we know, we can find out who the person is, by by where they are and, what they put up, and they will have a profile. So they do, and then some of them, they are security checked further. So they provide further details in their actual telephone numbers and addresses and landlines, and also they are security marked. So those are more trustworthy. So when
sounds as though we need to use these for our respondents.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, they've developed these. On their websites have developed these security marks and checks.
Yeah. Interesting. I've got a question in from Carol Rai Tatar. Hi, Carol. Does your research give you any ideas about how marriage in India will evolve in the future?
It is, it is giving us a fair idea, because they still say arranged, but they are becoming semi-arranged, because the girl and the boy have much more of a say, especially in urban India. But even in rural, because this is not about websites, but as such, even in rural India, the one thing that's coming up now is that if they won't give their daughter into a village family, for instance, if they don't have a toilet inside the house. So these are not people on, so the girls are having a more of a say. Or if they have a house in the village, but they don't have they have a thatched roof, which is, which has to be changed every year, or which might be leaking. So they won't give their daughter into a home. So one of the big themes that's coming out for me was that girls are having more of a say in who they marry.
Yeah. So more about standards of the new home they may be moving into.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Some very important things. So how does the work you've done sort of translate more widely? Does it translate more widely beyond the marriage market, do you think? So some of the coding that you found, does it have a wider sort of application, really?
I think the online bit of it, in terms of the colors, and for me, doing that part was really interesting, about how every country has these different codes of colors and scripts and language, and for me that has been really interesting to research more in detail and put a semiotic view on those things. Mm-hmm. So in terms of website development, not just for marriage websites, but for other websites as well. So when I'm doing any UX now, UX user experience development on websites, that's something I'm using quite heavily, semiotics for websites.
Yeah, yeah. And I was thinking also there's I mean some very obvious things, and an awful lot of semiotics is based around colour, some based around words. Are there any more subtle things that you identified?
The script, the symbols that they're using, the language, of course, as I said, the tone of the language, visuals that they put in, just placement of things, so where they've got the com vertically rather than horizontally. So yeah, alignment of things, a lot of all this. Yeah.
Now you did this as a qualitative exercise, and I was wondering about the sort of wider application of what you've done. So you looked into a particular market in a particular way. Let's move over to the West a minute, and does the technique that you've used, can it translate into other studies that we might consider in the UK, for example? Not to do with marriage, I'm just talking more broadly about any other subject.
Well, I think anything to do with websites, I would say, any user experience, or anywhere where I would even, I was thinking of using it. I haven't done it yet, but talking to people about when they're doing their presentations, for instance, when they have their sales presentations or things like that. So what are the ways that we can use these codes to make them more effective, or for instance, communication also, say government communication and things, where
because there was
to be more sensitive.
Yeah, there was an inquiry, I can't remember who it was from now, on the ICG website this morning, somebody looking for a software platform to do some user experience testing. And as you were talking, I was thinking, I would think, generally speaking, people would not put a semiotic dimension into that. They would say, where do your fingers go? How do you navigate? And it'll be all quite practical stuff. But from what you're saying, there is the potential to do some semiotic analysis within that user experience testing. So could you just give us an idea of how you see that in relationship to sort of web design generally?
Oh, but this is where I think our experience as a semiotician, or people's experience as researchers. That's why I say when nowadays we have people who have just don't have experience of market research, but they just go in and do this user testing without the in-depth of understanding of things. I think that's where we bring in our knowledge and this semiotics knowledge that I think a lot of us have that because we've been doing market research for so long, or who have studied. I was just thinking of one of the projects that I did where we were developing a software platform for a client, a media client. And in that, the way we were asking questions, the language we were using, and how the tone of the language, semiotically, what brought in more responses was an interesting exercise for me as well. So I was talking in Urdu, but in a very polite way. The way I was asking questions was very gentle, and so all those codes that I was using, it helped get very, very good responses. So we can, the same thing we can use in analyzing as well. So when we're doing analysis of like a software platform for UX experience, we need to go beyond and say, okay, you're looking at this, and what did you mean, and then what were you referring to? Think about. So doing a little bit of probing on that would get you. And then, of course, what I tend to do is do a little bit of analysis of what's happening on the web on the same subject, and then infer from those things as well. Is that clear?
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Are there any more questions from our attendees? I don't have any more here, so I can't see any more coming up. So, on the presumption that all questions have been answered, I just want to thank you, Anumita, for doing this second time round. I think it's, and I found it totally fascinating and totally engrossing as to how this system works, and relating semiotics to something that's real, but also something that I personally know very little about. So I think it's really great. And thanks to Apple Tree Marketing for sponsoring today.